Welcome back, Cyberverse. This is Favorite Tortoise, and this is the weekly update. Let's get into it. This week has been quite a busy week. We made some huge strides in the game and made a really exciting feature. But first, Sunday. This is when I started to get back into the project. It's funny how sometimes you can have a conversation with someone and all of a sudden something clicks. Oh my god, I can do this. That's how I fix that problem. That's how I get to this process. This is what happened to me. Sunday and Monday were not a fun day for me. Sunday and Monday, I spent a lot of my time looking at code, reviewing what I've done, and figuring out what the hell I was trying to do. A lot of the time, I would be banging my head against the desk because it was just so messy. No comments, no structure. It was just a lot of print statements, and I can see why I abandoned it in the beginning. I was trying to understand what the blueprints did and how they worked, how they interacted with each other. It's not a simple process. But I got there. I started a hack and plan board and continued on my way. I started putting in the functionality that I wanted in the game and how to plan that out. The hack and plan board was a real lifesaver over this week, and it gave me a process to start with. I was able to go back to it each time that I looked at the game each day and go, right, I need to focus on this, or this is where I'm up to with this part. At the moment, I'm looking at planning out the mechanics for the game rather than the art and the level design, because the mechanics will allow me to do the questing side and build up the kinds of quests that I want into the game. I am a more technical person, so this really plays into my wheelhouse. I like programming. Art is hard for me. Art is not easy for anyone, but doing that kind of stuff is not in my wheelhouse. So, moving on to Monday. Monday was kind of the inspiration for this vlog series. I'd been watching a number of other indie developers build their own vlog series, and it seemed to keep them in check, keep them motivated, even accountable to their viewers. Whilst I wasn't doing a lot of this, I was working on creating and editing my first update. You've probably already seen it. If not, the link is below. Given I have a full-time job and I was doing all this video editing, not a lot of progress was made on the game today. But Tuesday is a different story. Tuesday is when the game dev really started to get real. My inspiration for this game came back when I was playing Watch Dogs 1, all the way back when it was first released. Touted to be a hacking game, it really didn't live up to the expectation for me. One of the great things that I thought I could implement in this game was an actual command prompt. Not fully fledged like what you've got on your computer, but some basic functionality where you can change directory, you can list files, you can execute commands. That's the dream. Now, I was reading some articles about different game styles, different ways to implement things in UE4, and stumbled across an article. This article was by the developers of TARDIS, the game, and it was by the website 80.lv. Now, in this article, I figured I could adapt what they're talking about into my game. So they talked about how they did their terminal system in their game, and if you haven't seen it, the link to the article and their game is in the description below. After more headbanging, I managed to get a working system. Like a standard command prompt, you want functionality for things like changing directory, listing the files that are there, the executables, and executing files. This presented a few problems in the beginning. It was all about changing the directory at first. That was a fairly simple one. It was just a label and changing the label based on the input. As is mentioned in the article, you can override the on-down key function to capture the input and display it on the screen. This is all done within the widget. Things like the spacebar and the enter key and the backslash key and the forward slash key had to be detected through a custom function. Again, this was mentioned in the article. The way that they return a character from the actual keyboard is the word enter or the word backslash. So being able to use those keys, we needed a custom function. Was a relatively easy fix. Used a switch on a string. Simple, easy to implement. Using the backspace key, we take for granted. You hit backspace, it's going to delete a letter. Yep, works on every system. Doing this within Unreal for something that you're inputting makes you think about how it actually works. The way that I had to implement it was using a left chop. In what we have a label that contains the current directory. As you're typing in your letters, they display next to this current directory area. Looks like what you're typing in on a command prompt. If you hit the backspace key, it should delete one letter, correct? Cool. Doing that, we need to use left chop. To be able to determine what was the command and what was the variable, being CD, and the directory that we wanted to change to, we needed to be able to split it. Now, typically there's a space between the command and the variable, right? So we were splitting based on space. Sometimes this would not work. So if we were to put a executable in a folder and want the user to run it, you don't have a space anywhere in that command. So we had to implement something that would check to see whether there was a space, and then if there was no space, append a space to the end of it so that when we're splitting, we still get the command out into a variable. This, whilst it doesn't sound hard, was fairly important because we're using the command to do a switch on so that we could determine what the user was running. Because if you type in CD and it runs dir, that's not right. This is where I started to get into my own custom code, when I started to want to implement a change directory function. In the widget that I created, there is a label in front of where your cursor is. This displays the current directory that you're in and then a greater than sign. After that, that's where you start typing. You got your cursor, you start typing and it runs away and it shows you what you're typing. That worked perfectly. Now what I wanted to do was when someone typed in CD folder name, I wanted them to have that label update so that the current directory showed where they actually were. To do this, it was a custom function. It had to be displayed correctly in the actual label first, right? You need to have the label end in a backslash. So in the function, we had to check for this the same way that we check for a spacebar in the commands. We check for the backslash in the variable, and then next we need to handle absolute paths. So these things that we're defining as absolute path starts with a backslash. So it must end with a backslash and start with a backslash. If it's not, we just append it to the current path and update the label. Simple. Getting this working was a huge achievement. I was really happy given that I had started this project in 2016, 3 years ago. And this was one of the key things that I had wanted to build. Wednesday and Thursday. Okay, look, I'll be honest with you. I didn't do anything on Wednesday and Thursday with regards to the game. I had work commitments. I needed some downtime. I went off and I played a bit of team fight tactics and I had to go to a couple of meetings late at night. So work on the game kind of stalled for these 2 days. But on Friday, we did a Twitch stream and this we made a lot of progress on. On Friday night we did a stream on Twitch and we made a lot of progress with the command prompt. We implemented a few functions, we had some error messaging actually come back out onto the widget, and it wasn't just printed. There was a lot of stuff happening on stream, and what I'm going to do is potentially do a separate video for that and explain how a lot of that works. All in all, I'm quite happy with how this week went. Given that this is the first week that I've been working on it since, about a year ago, it's really, really positive. Getting that command prompt working and being able to add extra functionality to it is something that I actually thought that I wouldn't be able to do. I've discovered that it was actually holding back a lot of my creativity and inspiration for the game. And now there's so many opportunities and possibilities that I can put into this game that I am really, really excited. I might not look it, but I am. Over the next week. Over the next week, I want to look at doing a bit more work around the command prompt. It does have a lot of a way to go. There needs to be a lot more error checking, especially around the file structure that we created with structs. I need to fill that out a lot more. One of the other things that I want to do is having unique names for PCs. So at the moment, there's a fleet of PCs on desks in this environment. They are all the same PC. When you interact with it, it has the same logon screen, it has the same background, it has the same icons on it, it has the same executables in it. It doesn't look any different. If we're able to put a bit of a dynamic thing onto it, where it looks like there's a lot more computers there, employees are unique, that kind of thing, it actually gives us a bit of opportunity with our questing system to do things like log on to Lauren's machine and steal her private details. This is something that I really need to think about and plan how we're going to do it. There's going to be a lot of moving parts to it, but it will be a game changer for the actual game itself. It will make the game feel a lot more in depth. But with that, I'm going to end here. As always, I'd love to hear what you guys think of the progress we've made in the actual game this week. Leave me a comment in the comments below. I will try and reply to all of them. Make sure you hit that like button. I love seeing that thing light up. It shows so much support for the game and what I'm doing. It's a real motivator. I'm planning to stream every Friday night if I can. So make sure you go over and drop me a follow at both Twitch and my Twitter. I'll try and put something out on Twitter earlier in the week to let you know what the plan is. Both are in the description below. If you want to stay up to date with the devlog, make sure you hit that subscribe button for future updates. Logging off. Later, Cyberverse.